great platform.
Yeah, it is.
So okay. So we're streaming now.
Yeah,
Start recording.
beautiful. Yes, it's very user friendly compared to Zoom
Yeah.
in terms of all those little widgets and gadgets up the top.
Okay. And thank you for that. So for anybody that was hearing the end of that story, as you can see, I've got Alison with us today. I'm so excited because Alison is she's a master when it comes to coaching and helping people achieve what they want to achieve in their lives. And one thing about Alison is that her and Sally every Monday have a goal setting workshop to go week by week. And so Sally's got a birthday party, so she's probably out there, having a good time. So we've got Alison, who's I was just so excited because we're going to talk about a few things today, but one thing I really want to talk about is setting goal setting. And but before we talk about that, firstly, Alison, how are you?
Good, thank you, Paul. And I'm very excited to be here. That was a hell of a rap you gave me. I don't know that I'm quite that good, but hey, thank you. I certainly try to be.
Well, I don't know. I've got this fly around me. It's annoying the heck out of me. As soon as I turned it on, whatever. You guys, if you do this all the time, it's going to
Just look
distract
at it
me.
as good luck. You're attracting good luck.
Yeah, that's right. Well, or maybe I smell like a piece of you know what.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. But before we go into goal setting, I want to talk about something. So you and I, we're part of another group where we talk about, what's happening in our lives. And you've had a company called ClickFunnels after what was it, 6 months? Just hit your account again.
Yeah.
What happened there?
So I signed up to ClickFunnels quite a long time ago with another kind of course I was doing. And of course, it's all in USD, which, especially now the exchange rate is horrendous. But even back then, so I had signed up to ClickFunnels and I was sort of flirting around with sort of using ClickFunnels, and I was never very good at it. Anyway, so after a while, I realized that, I was paying ClickFunnels every month. And that's one of the things I want to talk about in a minute. And I wasn't using it. It was just a waste of money. So when I realized that, and it took me a while to realize that, I closed off my account. Now, I don't know what's happened, but suddenly on Saturday, so Sally was saying in this group that we belong to about how she looked into her account. There was $200 that appeared, which was awesome. So I thought, let me have a look at my account and see if the universe has blessed me too. Well, blow me down. It wasn't the universe, but ClickFunnels decided to give me, a right hook.
Punch in the guts.
$470 was ripped out of my account, and I was just about to go supermarket shopping. So luckily, I checked that, and so I took the cash that I had at home and went shopping with that. And what I want to talk about with that, anyway, so I follow that up with, I've sent them an email. I haven't heard anything yet, but I did ring my bank, and so the bank has now put a hold on that. They've actually cancelled my card, and so now I've got to have the inconvenience of waiting for a new card till I hear from ClickFunnels. But what that brought me to talk to you about, Paul, is something called money leaks. Now, there's an Aussie lady called Denise Duffield Thomas, and if any of you, particularly women, I think follow her, especially younger women, she is also known as DDT, which is an interesting, acronym. And she has a couple of books out. Her first book was called Get Rich Lucky Bitch. And there she talks about it. She's also a coach, and she talks about how to make money. And she actually has a money workshop, and she's very successful. She's a multimillionaire, and she does a lot of business in the US. And of course, that's a very lucrative market. So anyway, so what Denise Duffield Thomas talks about in her book, which I got on Audible, by the way, is to plug your money leaks, because money will come out of your account without you knowing about it. It'll be those things you've subscribed for that you've forgotten about, or sometimes they're very sneakily, there's an upsell, but you might not have realized that you've ticked. And basically, money's coming out of your account for things that you're not aware of. So the money is leaking out of your account almost like it was a bucket that had holes in it. So what she says is to go back and have a look at your bank accounts and see where's that money leaking from and plug those leaks and basically cancel the subscriptions you're not using, etc. So that's what I did with ClickFunnels, and that's why I thought would be a really good thing to talk about on a money program about, plugging your money leaks. First of all, go find them and then plug those leaks.
And I know what you mean. It really, firstly, that was actually one of the tips from Sally last week. Running into Christmas, her tip, one of the tips was to find those money leaks and as you said, shut them off so that they don't leak out of the account anymore. Right? But one of the things that annoys me a lot is everything seems to be now on a subscription basis, and it's the way the world's gone, and it's designed to have people that don't use your product still pay for it. It's kind of like years ago when I used to go to the gym. Right, a gym membership, you'll pay a gym membership for every month, right? Or you sign up for a year. Most people will go to the gym 2 or 3 times, be committed to a year, right? So I agree with you. It's one of the things that I'm very, very aware of that. So I suppose that's just a financial advisor in me. It's just being very aware of all these like ongoing hits on your account.
Yeah, and does does this program only go for Aussies or for people outside Australia?
Which program's that one?
This chat we're having is. Are your members wider than Australia?
So yes. I know Gregory is a friend of mine in New York.
Oh wow!
And so we have a chat all the time. And actually, he's a truck driver, so he could be anywhere in America. So yes, it does go out. I know that we've got somebody from Africa that joined the.
Oh, nice.
So I mean, I'm not going to discriminate. Firstly, I'm from Africa myself anyway, so I'm not going to discriminate. Just so long as you adhere to the rules and don't promote your products like cryptocurrency and things like that. I want everybody. I don't care if you're from Ethiopia or Thailand or New York or Sydney. I want everybody to have access to this open discussion about money.
The reason I ask that is because one of the things that annoys me in Australia is that we have a lot of Aussies who charge us Aussies in US dollars. Now, it's fair enough that they have an American market and they're charging them in US dollars, but I think that because what's happening is my bank charges me for the exchange and the money, and then their bank charges them, which is such a waste of money because the banks, are big enough. They don't need to be making money off you and me. But what I was going to say is that certainly for your Aussie friends or people who are watching in Australia, if you are doing business with another company or provider in Australia who charges in US dollars, and all power to them, especially if they do have an American market, I would go and talk to them about, especially now with the dollar being so fluctuating the way it is, and it's so low now, the exchange rate, that it's crippling. So what I would recommend, because I've done this with a coach that I know, is say to them, listen, how about whatever you're charging US dollars, how about we make a rate that's an Australian dollar equivalent or whatever it is, and come up with a rate, and then you pay them in Australian dollars in their Australian bank account. That saves you the international transfer fees, that saves them the international transfer fees, and it protects you from the fluctuations in the currency rate. So I just thought I would like to share that with any of your Aussie watchers or viewers who are perhaps doing business in Australia with someone who charges US dollars. Because there was a coach that I was doing, I got into his free trial program, and then he decided that lots of people wanted to continue, and we were happy to pay because he was giving great value, and it's only fair that, we should pay him for his services. But again, a lot of them are from the US, so he does charge a US monthly fee. But I said to him, listen, mate, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And also, it just then leaves me at the mercy of the currency, exchange rate. So how about we work out an Aussie dollar figure that works for both of us? So he said, yeah, why not? And so now that I've done that, that's something that I'm going to do anytime I'm talking to an Aussie to see if we can negotiate. Because people who are in business, generally the kind of people we talk to, the entrepreneurs, they're there to help others. They're there to help people. Yes, they want to make money, but they don't want to extort people, right? So what I would say to people watching, go and have a chat and see what that works for you.
Thank you. That is such a good idea. Because one of my frustrations is, yes, like if you have a look at the Australian dollar, right? It was 70 cents at the beginning of the year. I haven't looked at it recently, but it dropped down to about 60 cents, right?
Yeah.
And that's a huge difference.
Yeah.
But then you add the 3 or 4% of all the bank fees on top of that. And so I made a vow that I wasn't going to do any US transactions while we're in this situation.
Yeah.
And I didn't stick to that because I did buy something, but it's really hard. And I agree with you. That's such a good idea. Good thinking. One thing I want to do is Lorraine. Hi, Lorraine. She was with us last week, and she's back again. So hi, Lorraine. We've got Alison with us today.
Hi, Lorraine.
So it's really great to have her back. And Bill is there as well. I told you Bill's going to be very excited when we're going to talk about goals and setting goals around money. And as I said, you and Sally do this. You actually do a goal setting workshop every Monday, and you're doing one till the rest of the year. So if anybody wants to join you, right, there's another 4 weeks or 6 weeks to go, 5 weeks, something like that. Okay, it's what time? It's 9:30, 10:30 Australian Eastern Standard
Time, 9:30 Brisbane time on a Monday morning.
On a Monday morning. So if anybody's interested, Ali is in this group. So just send her a message. Send me a message. I can contact Ali and all that. But so Ali, tell us about goal setting around money.
Well, before we get into the goal setting itself, what I'd like to talk about is anytime you want to do something, look at what you're wanting to achieve. And yes, I'm a coach, and so I've got a lot of coaching kind of theory behind what I say, but only because it works. And I'm also an NLP master coach, which is neuro-linguistic programming, and we're going to be including that later on today. But when you're doing anything, look at what you want instead of what you don't want. And actually looking at what you don't want might be a good place to start, because sometimes we need to look at what we don't want to know what we do want. But when you do that, make sure that your focus is about what you want. Now, in coaching, especially in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, we talk about going towards something rather than going away from something. So in terms of money, you might say, I want to be rich versus I don't want to be poor. So when we the words we use really resonates in our subconscious mind, and our unconscious mind or subconscious mind, people use it interchangeably, doesn't hear the word don't or not. So if you say, I don't want to be poor, what your subconscious mind is hearing is, I want to be poor. So that's why we say, don't use negatives, don't use away from, use the towards. So I want to be rich, or I want to be wealthy, or these days we talk about abundance. So look at what you do want. But sometimes it does help to say, well, I don't want to be working for someone else. I don't want to be making less than $50,000 a year. I don't want this, I don't want that. But when you've looked at what you don't want, then flip it to see, what do I want? I want to be working for myself. I want to be earning, 6 figures, or I want to be earning, $80,000 a year, or however much a month, or whatever. And come from that place of what you do want. Because when you're coming from a place of what you do want, you're coming from a place of abundance. You're leaving behind scarcity. You're leaving behind the lack mentality, and you're coming from an abundant mentality. And that is a fabulous way to start your goal setting. So that's the first thing. Come from the place of being towards, about, what you want. Then look at what you're actually asking for and state it very clearly. Now, most people have heard about SMART goals, and that's something that we use in our workshops, the SMART goal acronym. but I've also put an NLP element and filter on that. So I'll try and share my screen, so bear with me. I'm not a great expert when it comes to this.
So while you're doing that, I just want to say how I love how well you explain everything. Because I've done NLP myself, so I understand when you're saying don't use the word not. Okay.
Yeah.
But I love the way you set it up beforehand because it's a gift.
I used to be a teacher, Paul.
Well, that explains it all.
And that's why I tend to repeat myself quite often again, because, repetition also is really good, because some people need to hear something more than once. And some people also need to be told it in a different way. So some people find it boring because I'm saying the same thing over and over, but for others, they find it quite useful. So here's the SMART acronym that we're used to seeing. So as you know, S is usually for specific, but
Okay,
now
so
I've added simple.
Alison,
Yes.
I can't see.
Okay.
I think we still got you, so I think you still need to share the screen.
Oh, I thought I was. Okay.
And while you're doing this, there we go. Let's come on. I can see it now. Well done.
Awesome. All right. So I think because I went into the large setting. Anyway, so S is for specific, which is the normal acronym, but we've added simple. So make it simple so it's really clear, and make it so that you can see yourself in it. And that will be important for when we do the visualization at the end. Now, M is usually for measurable, but with the NLP filter, it needs to be meaningful to you. So something that you really want, because somebody might think that, $100,000 is awesome, but for somebody else, they might think, no, I already have $100,000 that I'm making a year, so I want $150,000 or $200,000. So make it meaningful to you. Now, it has to be achievable, which means, if it's not achievable, you're setting yourself up for failure. So let's set ourselves up for success. And do it as if now, because part of this is also manifesting, sort of like a manifesting approach. So if you do it as if now, like it's happening currently. So R needs to be realistic, meaning it's on the right gradient. So basically you can't go from 0 to 100, in a second. It will take time. So you might need to have incremental steps. And the right gradient is saying the same thing. So you might, if you're making sort of $50,000 now, it's unlikely you're going to make 200,000. It might be more likely that you'll make 80 or maybe even 100, depending on what you're doing. So make sure it's on the right gradient. And T is timely, which again is part of the original SMART acronym. So you need to put a time in it, because once you have a time, you know that it's easy to achieve or not. And then make it about something towards what you want. And that's what we started the conversation with today. It has to be towards, so state it in the positive. So that's your SMART goal setting framework.
Okay. Great. Thank you for that. So you're saying the first thing you're saying is that you don't really like creating goals. That's probably why you should be creating goals. But you're saying that you like the SMART one for more short-term goals, and you've got something for a longer-term goals. What's that one?
Well, no, what I was saying is when I do the visualization, which is what we did on Monday and what you want me to do today, I have used that in my self-love course program, and it's always been a longer-term goal, because when you're doing this visualizing and given that even with this, and so we use a CREATE system, which is concise, realistic. E is ecological, meaning it's good for you, it's good for me, it's good for the planet. A is as if now. T again is timed, and E is end result. So what you're doing, even with that acronym, is you're making a goal that is very much in the SMART kind of construct, but what we're doing is we're making it in the future, so that what we do in that process is that you go and you put your goal into the future. We go through a process where you put your goal into the future, and it's more depending on what your goal is, it's more what's what I'm looking for? It's more realistic or believable. That's what I'm looking. It's more believable to your unconscious mind when it's something that's going to happen, in the future. I think there is some kind of research out there that says we overestimate what we can do in 1 year and underestimate what we can do in 10 years. So quite often with the goal setting that I do, I used to make it a year or make it 3 years, because then it tends to be something that's far more realistic. Because, like, say for example, you want to lose weight, it's very hard that you're going to see any great change in a week. You might see half a kilo, you might see 1 kilo, but if your goal weight is say 10 kilos, you're not going to see that, straight away. And that's why with the process that I use, I normally use it for longer term, but it can work for shorter term, because I'm a big believer in, hey, you won't know unless you try. So let's give it a go. But, it's just about making sure then that your goal is achievable in the time frame you set it. So whether you set your time frame for a year or whether you set it for a week, if it's not achievable, it ain't going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's one of my biggest faults is when I create a goal, I want to, and this is what I love about what Sally says when she creates a goal. She'll create a goal and she'll say this or something better,
Yes.
which is a great way of, one thing a goal should be is just a little bit out of reach, right? But not too out of reach.
Yeah.
But one of my problems is I'm always going too out of reach. So if I can pull back and go to, I just want to go a little bit out of reach or something better, that could really help me with regards to.
Definitely. Because, we talk about it being on the right gradient, so it has to be achievable. So as I said, you can't go from, it's unlikely you're going to go from making $50,000 to $100,000, or sorry, to $200,000. It's more likely, depending on what your business is, you might make $100,000. But if you sort of say that I want to make $80,000 or something better, then your chances of making $80,000 are very reasonable. And don't forget, we're talking about your unconscious mind again, saying, well, you know what, mate, $100,000 ain't going to happen. And $200,000 is definitely not going to happen. But $80,000, yeah, I think we can. And then when you say $80,000 or something better, you will hit $80,000. But then, hey, something better might come. And that's where the manifesting part comes in.
That's fantastic. But the other thing I want to say is that now there are certain people that have been working years and years towards a goal without any reward. And then when it does happen, it pours with him. So I'm thinking of a sports person, for instance, right? If you spend 10 years of your life earning $0 and then you get taken up into a football team or something like that, all of a sudden you're making $100,000. If you become really good, you could go from $100,000 to $1 million. Right? So it's not a hard and set rule, but for people that aren't in that position, which is you and I, let's not turn around and say I'm earning $100,000 this year. I expect to earn $1 million next year.
Yeah.
Let's go 250,000.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's exactly what I'm trying to say, Paul. Although you said it much more cleanly. Yes, because, like the whole Jim Carrey story where apparently he used to carry around a $10 million check in his wallet. And he'd look at it quite frequently. And that's part of the manifesting thing for people who are into manifesting. But in the meantime, he'd keep going for auditions and what have you. And then finally, he landed his part. I don't know whether it was The Mask or whatever it was, his first big movie, where that was his first check, a $10 million. Well, that was the check for his first big movie. But in the meantime, he was obviously making, a little bit here and a little bit there. But his dream of manifesting $10 million did come true because that was his goal. And, the whole manifesting thing is like another level, I guess, from what we're saying, because there are other factors that come into it.
Yeah.
But the goal setting is, to my mind, a little bit more practical oriented. And that's why what Sally and I do, we say it's part practical, part magical, because we do work with the practical, but then we also bring in the manifesting part. We also bring in the old bling cards, and I've just happened to have one here. So, we do a little bit of woo-woo stuff as well as the practical stuff.
Yeah. And so I'm exploring the woo-woo side, and I don't think it's woo-woo, really. I just think it's people don't understand it. But getting back to Jim Carrey and his $10 million, right? Okay. Um, 2 days ago, I went for a bike ride, and while I was riding my bicycle, I was listening to Jim Carrey. No, not Jim Carrey. You got me all confused. Grant Cardone, right?
yeah.
Who's one of the greatest salespeople in the world. And what came to me is, I sell insurance, and I was thinking. It came from a conversation I was having with Andrew, who's a member in this group. And you're saying there's some people out there that will buy insurance just to show off that they've got insurance. So it got me to thinking, right? Now, how much do you value yourself? Now, if you value yourself at $10 million, you should have $10 million of life insurance.
Yeah.
And that will really crystallize that belief in you, because you've got something concrete to say that you're worth $10 million.
Love it.
So I've got to see how much it costs to get $10 million now. And I was thinking, why not go to 100 million? The only problem is when you do go to those levels of life insurance, in Australia, unless you're like way out there in the billionaire stratosphere, you can only get a $10 or $20 million.
Right.
And then after that, it goes on to you need to be underwritten by another underwriter and things like that.
Yep.
But yeah, I was just thinking that it was interesting. You mentioned $10 million. So Ali, do you have $10 million worth of life insurance?
I don't. I wish I did. In fact,
Well,
I'm
maybe
not
you
sure
should.
what my life insurance policies were, because I was in the public service for a long time. And again, this is really silly. So when I was 21, I don't know, whenever time when I started working, possibly 21, because I was a teacher scholar till then, I got a life insurance policy. And the life insurance salesman he was just crap, because I lived with mum and dad, and I was sort of thinking, if I died, I'd like the money to go to mum and dad. So I got this end of life policy, which was so silly at 21. Whereas my girlfriend was much more savvy, or maybe she had a better insurance salesman. He sold her an endowment policy. So when she turned 35, she would get the benefit of the endowment policy. Anyway, so when I started working, and the guys I was working with were really lovely, and they said, listen, convert that to a superannuation policy, because I was working kind of like a contractor on an hourly rate. So I did that. So for the longest time, I had this superannuation policy for a while, and then got married, and we had kids and whatever. And then we came to Canberra, and I joined the public service. And my husband said, or ex-husband now, don't worry about that. That's silly, because with the public service, you'll get your pension and all that will be covered. And it was really dumb, because all it was costing me was $398 or something a year. But, especially when I was pregnant and I didn't have an income, we had his kids from his first marriage we were paying for. So I just stopped paying. And, my parents would have given me bloody $400 a year to pay for my insurance. Anyway, so without wanting to give you my whole life story. So I didn't kind of make the best use of that insurance policy. And then when I was with the public service, when I came up to retiring, I wanted to get another life insurance policy, but then because I was older, it was going to cost me so much more. So I then had to hit all the various health requirements. So I do have a life insurance policy, but I have no idea what it's worth. So, and I'm not even sure who the beneficiaries are. I don't think I'm going to tell my kids in case they bump me off.
Well, now, firstly, because this is my profession, I have to stipulate anything I say is just general advice.
Yeah.
If something I say resonates with you, go and see a financial advisor, and if not, come and talk to me, right? Where I can do it properly. But everything I'm going to talk about now is just for education purposes. The first thing I want, I'm glad you started talking superannuation. And now I do apologise to all the people that aren't Australian from Australia, but this is Australian specific. But when you were talking that you worked as a teacher in Canberra, right? Okay.
No, sorry, I was a teacher in Melbourne, and then
and then
I came to Canberra, and So I was a teacher first with the Air Force, where I was working on a contract basis. Then I started working in a school, and I did get, employer contributions and normal kind of wages, pay as you go stuff. And then when I came to Canberra, I became a public servant.
Yeah, okay. And I'm glad you brought that up, because superannuation, initially when it first came out, we had all these what were called defined benefit schemes, right? Which basically meant that when you retired, you were going to get a certain amount of money for the rest of your life, indexed to inflation. And if it's, I don't know, let's say it's $500 a week or a month or whatever, it might not sound so glamorous, but it's a lot better, because what if you live to 150 years old?
Yep.
You've got that $500 indexed all the way, right? But what they realized was that they were going to go broke if they kept all these defined benefit schemes.
Yeah.
So they brought in what's called the accumulation scheme, which basically means you are putting aside 10% of what you earn into superannuation, or your employer is on your behalf. And when you retire, you've got a lump sum. And as Nobby and I were saying, that in Australia, the average person will probably have about $250,000 in the superannuation when they retire. And that's got to last you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Now, think of it, right? Most people want to retire around 65, 67. That's the new age when you can get the pension, right? If you're going to live another 20 years, because the mortality rate is in the 50s, you've got 20 years and you're going to live $250,000. So superannuation, I wanted to highlight, firstly, have a look at your super plan. If you've ever worked in the public service, or if you have an old policy, if you do, and if it's a defined benefit scheme, if somebody tells you to turn that into a accumulation, yeah, I can see you. Right. Okay. So that's a very important thing. Okay. And
you don't do it.
It amazes me that that people, and there's a lot of people in Canberra that I've come, because I met you through networking through Misty, who's Canberra based. So there's a lot of Canberra people. So I've come across a lot of people that still have these defined benefit schemes. Now, the second thing you were talking about was this endowment policy, or what we call whole of life policy. And again, these whole of life policies, they're no longer in Australia, right? Because basically, I'm going to get too technical, but basically it had an insurance component and it had an investment component. And they knew that they were either going to pay out the insurance component or the investment component. So it was never, when it was sold, right, it was back in the 80s, where money, like when you said, oh, by the time 2000 comes around, you're going to have $50,000. And people got so excited, because $50,000 went a long way back in 1980.
Yeah.
By the time you got to 2000, we're like, 50,000? No, I can't get anything with 50,000. So that fell by the wayside. But I actually came across somebody through my travels, and he took these policies, and because they were an insurance, they had an insurance component. What he did is he changed something within these policies, and he would then he will borrow the money against the insurance component part and then pay it back on his credit card. And every time he did that, he accumulated frequent flyer points. So he was just recycling frequent flyer points. So, like, think of it this way: if you have a credit card and you've got 100,000 policy, right? You borrow $100,000 and you pay it back on your credit card because it's an insurance. Right? You get 100,000 frequent flyer points. So this guy, all his holidays were free because of this frequent flyer things. He has holidays for the next 50 years all paid up on his frequent flyers.
Yeah, I wonder if he wants a companion.
I met him. He lived down on Balmoral Beach. He had one of the houses overlooking Balmoral Beach and had a big boat out the front. So it was pretty well off anyway. It was an interesting story. But no, I tell that story because there's somebody that had a look at a currency that people don't think much about is frequent flyers. There's so many different currencies out there that you can actually utilize to your benefit.
Yeah.
Anyway, so so we've gone off track a little bit. So getting back to goals, right? Okay.
I'm good like that.
No, that's right. You did turn around and say that one thing you didn't like doing was the goals, but it is important, and what you resist persists, right? So if you start creating these goals, that's your biggest. I'm not saying it's your biggest mental block right now, but for somebody, if you are resisting creating goals, if you start creating goals, if it's a fear, you will get through that fear and you'll have a bigger breakthrough. Right?
Absolutely. And that's something that, that I've now come to as well, is that I have now embraced doing goal setting because I realized that I'm not actually getting anywhere. And the reason I'm not getting anywhere, it's like getting in the car and driving and you don't know where you're going.
Yeah.
So how will you know when you get there? And that's what I realized I've been doing. I've been getting in my car and driving and thinking, I don't know where I am. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know how far I want to get. So why don't I feel like I'm making any progress? That's because I don't have a destination. So your goals are like having a destination.
Yeah.
So that's why I've embraced goal setting.
And that's so true. And I think the statistics are like 5% of people have goals, right? Okay. Or it's 5% of people have goals written down. So tell me, why is it so important to actually write down the goal?
Yeah, I don't know the statistics either. Sally knows the statistics, but basically when you write something down, preferably handwriting, because when you handwrite, there's some kind of relationship between your handwriting and your neurology. It gets embedded in further. You can do it on the computer, and that's better than not writing them down. But once you articulate your goals, then you have a clear idea of where you want to go. Otherwise, it's kind of in your head and it might not be very clear and it's airy-fairy, or you might forget. It doesn't keep you on track. And the other thing is, again, if you're talking manifesting and talking about the universe loves it to be specific, and the universe really loves it when you put it down clearly. So putting it down also has that other element of, the universe and that energy. And I just want to slightly go off track again, surprise, surprise, because what you were saying about, that now you're really embracing this sort of stuff and it's not woo-woo. And you're right, because more and more science is now proving that all the stuff we used to think of as being woo-woo is actually scientifically based. I mean, even Einstein, who was, some people think the greatest scientist of all, even he was talking about your imagination is more powerful than your knowledge. Nikola Tesla was all about energy and vibration. So he said everything was energy and vibration. And that's what manifesting is all about as well. And I'm getting goosebumps as we're talking about this. So a lot of this stuff is actually now based in science. And of course, Sally plays her vibration music in the background of things, because that, again, is getting into your neurology. Sorry, Paul.
No. So what I was thinking, I've read Think and Grow Rich, I don't know, 5-6 times this year. And what Napoleon Hill says is definiteness of purpose, right? Or that's his word for goal, right? And he says it's got to be very concise, right? These are things you need to do with goals, right? But even in that book, now he talks about telepathy. He talks about mind reading. Your ascending, receiving station. He talks about all of those things, and I think what's happened is this is I'm not going to call it an advanced technology, but it's a technology or a philosophy that can really help a lot of people.
Yes.
But it's been shut down. If like you woo-woo. Every time you say woo-woo, I cringe, because I go, you're bringing down something and people are going, oh, it's woo-woo. But no, it reminds me of Dolly the sheep. Do you know who Dolly the sheep is? Right? Now, a lot of people... Sorry?
The cloned sheep.
The cloned sheep, right? So now this came out, in the 80s or 90s or whenever, okay? And there was news, and it was there for a few months, and we haven't heard anything about it since, right? Now, do you think that they just stopped cloning sheep, or do you think that maybe without all of us knowing, they've continued to clone sheep and improved on that technology, right? What about something like telepathy? I mean, Napoleon Hill was in Think and Grow Rich, and that was written 100 years ago.
Yeah.
They were talking about doing scientific studies where people could read other people's cards, and they could be the other side of the world and still pick up those vibrations. So, and this was a scientific study. So I hate it when people, and I know Sally, I've never told this to Sally, but when Sally goes woo woo, I'm going, it's not woo woo. It's just we're I don't know, we're belittling something that really I think is there to help us.
And I think this is a really great conversation, well worth having, just as a topic of conversation, because I think people sort of use the word woo-woo because for people like you and I who are already convinced and already are believers, we don't worry about that. But for people who are skeptical, the term woo-woo kind of lets them know that we are aware that they might think it's nonsensical. They might think it's what some people call magical thinking. They might think it's a farce, because I'm sure my son's in that category too. They might think it's rubbish. But you and I both know that it might sound rubbish, but it's actually not. And the term woo-woo, I think, now has become synonymous for what people think is rubbish, because it sounds like it's magic. It's just an easy way of categorizing some people's beliefs. But you're right. For those of us who believe and who know it's not, then, I think we sort of, well, certainly I, and I think probably Sal says, well, it sounds woo-woo, but let me tell you, it's actually not. And I picked up this card before, the Bling card.
Oh, all right, tell us, please.
Yeah, and this is a game for people watching. Find Your Bling is a game that was created by one of Sally and my friends, and now we're both Bling Angels. And there are 800 cards in this game of different varieties. This is inspiration. And the premise of the game is you bring a question and then you pick your cards, and the cards will kind of relate to your question. And I will tell you, I guarantee anybody who does a reading with me will get a breakthrough on their question. Now, that's not woo-woo, because that's using you and me in the cards. And the card is all about how you interpret it. And that's a lot of this, what people think of as woo-woo. It's all about your interpretation. It comes back to your unconscious mind that we were talking about before. It's what you think is what you get. So that's part of my way of explaining it.
Yeah, no, and thank you for doing that. And I just think that we just need to stand strong in what we're talking about, and not call it woo-woo, because it's lessening the message.
Yeah.
And if it's going to put pressure on other people, let them sit in that pressure.
Sure, love it.
And all of that. And I'm going to now put this out. Anybody that goes to Alison and has a Bling reading and does not get a breakthrough, it's a money-back guarantee. Is that right?
Definitely.
There we go. All right. So we've just done the money-back guarantee thing for you, right? And I know that, again, when you're saying, you get the Bling card and you read it out, it's your interpretation is different to the next door neighbor's interpretation, right?
Yeah.
And that's why it's so powerful for you, because it's your mind interpreting that message.
Yeah.
And you could get the same message next week and interpret it different again.
Absolutely. And both times will be completely valid.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's when we really need to start understanding that we are human beings on this plane, right?
Yeah.
And there's something out there that, and I don't know what your beliefs are, right? So I'm just talking for myself, but there's something out there that has a more order or more intelligence or whatever it is. Some people might call it God or Jehovah or whatever you want to call it, right? There's just something out there. One thing that I believe, and I want to believe, and I think people should believe, is that out there wants the best for you.
Yeah.
And whatever you call it, I'm going to just call it God because that's the easy way, right, for people to relate. But that God wants the best for you. That God wants you to have all the abundance and the money in the world for you as well.
Absolutely.
So yeah, those are just a few thoughts on my part.
Love it.
Okay, so what we're going to do is you did this on Monday during our goal setting workshop, and I thought it was really good, and I love the way you did it. So are you ready to take us through? How long does this meditation go for?
It's actually just a visualization process. So it can go for, I don't know, maybe a couple of minutes. It depends because I tend to talk a lot. So it depends how much I talk. I wouldn't be more than 5 minutes.
5
it's really
to 10
important
minutes.
for people to have a goal when we're doing this. So if you don't have a goal at the moment, make sure that you get one. Use the SMART construct that I put up before. Rewind and get that, and make sure you see yourself in it, because that's where the power is, when you're really embodying your goal happening, and that's where the magic is.
So before you actually go into the meditation, let's role play this, right? Let's assume that somebody is going to set up a goal to double their income in the next 12 months, right? So SMART, the first S stands for specific.
Specific, make it
right,
simple.
So the specific thing is you specifically. So let's say you're earning $100,000. Specifically, it's $200,000.
Yeah.
And it's simple. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
M is measurable.
Yeah, but I just want to go. So see yourself, and the see yourself is when and we'll go through that. See yourself achieving the goal, and we'll get to that later on. M is measurable.
Yeah.
So it can be measured. Yes, I've made 200,000. No, I haven't.
Yep. Okay. A is.
Oh, hang on. It also has to be meaningful. So 200,000 is meaningful to you. I'm not getting it because my wife says I've got to double my money. I'm not doing this so I look good to my neighbors, or I get my parents' approval. I'm doing this because it's what I want. Because if it's not what you want, then again, it's gonna you're gonna be self-sabotaging one way or the other. So make sure it's meaningful to you. It's what you want for you, not for anybody else.
Yep. So it's meaningful. It's what you want.
Yeah.
A
is achievable, like you said.
Right. So yep, it's not too out there, but it's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah. And put it as if now. So it's happening as if now.
Yep. But that's what this meditation is going to do for us. It's when we go into this meditation, we're going to do this as if now. We're going to see ourselves doing it, aren't we? Or this visualization. I shouldn't call it's both, I suppose. Right. So I'm just trying to set it up so if anybody's there, that they can actually start, doing it for themselves as well. Is okay. Now, even if you've got a job, I'm earning $60,000. All right, I want to make it $120,000.
Yeah.
It's meaningful for me because that way I might be able to get a deposit for my house, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's realistic. Yeah, it's not like I'm going to go for $1 million. T is.
And R is also on the right grading. So if you're in a job earning $60,000, is it realistic you're going to make $120,000? Maybe not, depending on the job. Now, you talked about sports people. They might go for years earning nothing, and then they get a contract with someone. Excuse me. So for them, they might go from zero to $120,000. But for those of us in a job, a paying job, we might not be able to double it. It has to be on a realistic gradient. So we might go from 60 to 80 because we've got a promotion. Or if you're in the private sector, you might go from 60 to 120 if you're headhunted or if you're offering the kind of skills that people want. But make it realistic for your situation.
But the other thing about having a job is you might go to another company and they might get headhunted. And with regards to just getting over there, Napoleon Hill says, give more service than what you get paid for. So if that's what your goal is, to double your money, double what you're doing now.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's R. So T is timely, which is you have to set a time limit to it. And it also has to be towards. So towards what you want, not away from what you don't want. So to put it all together, it has to be specific and simple, and you've got to see yourself in it. It has to be measurable and meaningful to you. It has to be achievable as if now. It has to be realistic and on the right gradient, and it has to be timely. So you've got a time frame, and it has to be towards towards something you want. So those are it. Now, what might be, for example, we're going to actually go through the process of seeing yourself in it. And I'm just going to tell you what it's about so you know how to do it. So I'm going to say, okay, so I want you now to sort of, see yourself in this goal. And how will you know you've got it? So you see that you're sitting in front of your computer and you're looking at your bank statement and you see $200,000 from your either if you're a businessman or business person, sorry, or your might be your spreadsheet that sort of shows you how much you've made in the year. If you're somebody who gets paid from a company, it might be you've got a contract for $200,000, whatever, and you're seeing that on your screen. Or it might be some other way that you're actually seeing it through your own eyes, right? And that's how you know, hey, I've made my $200,000, or hey, I've made my $120,000. That's what I mean by seeing yourself in it, that you're seeing it happen. So that's where I really want to kind of, because that point is really important, which I don't think I sort of said strongly enough on Monday. But anyway, so you're actually seeing your goal being achieved. If it's losing weight, say in a year's time, I want to see that there's 10 kilos less on the scales. I'm standing in my bathroom and I'm looking down at the scales and it says 10 kilos less than I weigh now. So that's me seeing myself happening as if now. It's happening as if now as well, right? That's also the as if now part.
Yeah. So I just want to clarify this. Okay, so there's there's two things you could be doing, right? The first one is it could be like you're looking through your eyes. So you're stepping on the scales and you can see the 10 kilograms lighter. Or you could see you like an angel up in the air and you're seeing yourself standing on the scales, stepping on there. Or is that different?
Comes later. Yeah.
That comes later.
It's actually a two-step process. So the first step is I want you, and this is what I didn't say clearly enough on Monday, is I actually want you to be seeing everything through your own eyes. So you're sitting in front of the computer or wherever, or you're looking at your paycheck, whatever you're doing, you're looking at it through your own eyes. If you're standing in the scales in your bathroom, you're looking at the scales. So that's and it's happening now because you're sitting there seeing this happen, or you're standing there seeing it happen. That's the as if now part.
Fantastic.
And that's quite critical.
Yeah.
And now we can do the rest.
All right. Okay. So you're going to. All right. So you're going to walk us through this now, and so I suppose you take control.
Okay.
Take the wheel.
Okay. Thank you. So, if when you start the process, just close your eyes. Just close your eyes and just concentrate on your breathing. Some deep breaths in and out. In through the nose and out through the mouth. In through the nose and out through the mouth. And again, in and out. Now I want you to see yourself having achieved this goal. You might be sitting in front of your computer, actually looking at the screen and looking at your bank statement. Or you might be looking at the check in your hand, or you might be standing on the scales. Whatever it is, you're seeing the goal being realized as if now. It's happening now. Awesome. Now, as you're looking at that through your own eyes, I want you to feel the feelings that you have in your body. Are you feeling excitement in your stomach? Are you feeling joy? Are you feeling such a sense of achievement and pride? What are you feeling? What are you hearing? Are you hearing yourself say, oh, I'm so proud of myself. Look at this. Oh, wow, I did it. $200,000. Oh, wow, 10 kilos down. I'm so pleased. I'm so happy. I'm so proud of myself. What are you saying to yourself? What are you hearing around you? Are you hearing people congratulate you? Are you hearing laughter? Are you hearing the birds singing? Are you hearing music? What are you hearing? And are you smelling anything? Can you smell some flowers? Or maybe there's some incense, or maybe there's some room deodorant in your room, or maybe you're in the bathroom and there's the fumes of the of the hot shower, the steam from the shower that is still in the air. So maybe that has a fragrance from the soap or the shower gel you've used. What are you smelling? So just really immerse yourself in the goal, seeing it through your own eyes, smelling those beautiful smells, hearing those sounds, feeling those sensations in your body. Now imagine you've got a radio in front of you, the old-fashioned radio with the little dial. Now just ramp up those feelings. If you're going at 5, make it 10. If you're at 10, make it 20. Ramp it up. Rev up those feelings. Rev up the senses. Rev up the emotions. Rev up the visualizing that you're seeing. Make it really powerful. Maybe make the colors brighter. Maybe make the picture resonate and pulse. Whatever it is, make it really strongly emotional for you. And when you've done that, that's awesome. I want you to take yourself out of that. Now I want you to stand up or sit down wherever you are and make sure that you've got a photograph image of yourself in that goal. You might see yourself in a photo or a picture sitting at the computer or standing on the scales in the bathroom. Now I want you to stand up, like Paul said before, like an angel hovering above, and you're seeing yourself in that scene, but now you've got a photograph of it. So take that photograph, and I want you now to go into your future, whether it's 3 months or 6 months or a year, and I want you to drop that photo at that date. Drop it in there, and then you can turn around and have a look towards now, and what you can see is that all the things that you need to do between here and now, you have now put in place. So you've done those incremental things. You've taken action along the way. And bit by bit, your goal is now coming to fruition. So your goal is being realized. So by the time you get to that end date, you have hit your goal. Congratulations. What a star. You've done it. Just sit in that feeling of achievement and then take 3 more deep breaths. In and out. In and out. In and out. Now wriggle your fingers and toes and just slowly come back into the room. Slowly become aware of your environment, of what's happening around you, and open your eyes when you're ready. And then as Sal says, always stretch. So you stretch up this way and that way. And she's always big on the shoulders because she says it opens the heart chakras. This is how I like to open my heart chakra, making it a prayer sort of movement, and then going around, and then you do a really big circle. So do that a little while as well, and that really will then just wake up your body. So that's the visualizing during the SMART goals.
Thank you. That was really good. I love that. As I told you, I loved it on Monday. I loved it this time as well. And it's so powerful, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. So we're almost into an hour now. So I want to thank you so much for filling in, and I really do appreciate it. And I'm going to have you a lot more often, that's for sure.
My pleasure.
If you want to, of course. No, I don't know if you know this, but we started a new member spotlight, and so I'm going to have you tell us what you do, just people get to know you. And the other thing is, I remember what Sally and I are going to talk about next week.
Awesome.
We're going to talk about these things such as vision boards, tools that you can use in order to help you with your manifesting. So vision boards, mind movies, things like that. Sally's got a whole list more things.
Yeah.
But do you have any last words before we sign off?
No, just that, embrace goals. I am now. And use the SMART with NLP, use the SMART structure with the NLP extras to really make it meaningful for you. And go get your goal. Well, good luck.
Right. Thank you for that. And what I want to do to finish off and say is, if you want to get into that top 5%, this is one of the tools you have to do.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ali.
You're welcome. Actually, there is one last thing. Sorry, we were talking before and I didn't say it. And they've talked about people who write down their goals. I think of whatever percentage of people who had goals actually quite a few of them actually achieved their goals. But the people who wrote them down, almost I think 100% of them actually achieved their goals. So having goals is more important than not, and writing them down is super important if you want to have them come true.
And you write it as if it's happening now, you write it towards. You don't use the not word, you use see yourself as achieving it.
Yeah.
You see, I've been listening to you. I think I've forgotten one or two things, but look,
Okay.
thank you for your time, Annie. I
My
appreciate
pleasure. Thanks for having me. I appreciate that, Paul.
it. Okay.